Get ready, BookTube. This is the Academy Awards of BookTube. The best reads of 2020 for my channel, Middle of the Book March. Pop some popcorn. Get everybody around the TV. Let's celebrate and have a party. Hi, BookTube. It's Kim at Middle of the Book March. And as I said already, for a big geek like me, this is the Academy Awards of reading. It is the best of the best for 2020, my best reads for the year. I have a pile of 12 books, according to one for each month. I shuffled a little bit and ranked them in order of my favorites from number 12 to number 1, with a little twist in there somewhere. So let me get started. First of all, for the year of 2020, I read 24 books that were ranked by me as 5-star books. I loved them. So I took half of those, and those were my top 12 for the year. So there were 12 other 5-star books that I read. And, let me know if you want to know what they are, but they don't appear in this particular video. So the number 12 book for the year is Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Madeline Miller is the author of Circe, and I read this early in the year. I loved it. I liked it better than Circe. I think Circe for me was a 4-star read. This is the story, the retelling of a Greek myth of the story of Achilles and his companion Patroclus. It is filled with Greek mythology, battles, companionship, kingdoms, scandal, adventure, and the story of Achilles and Patroclus, which starts as deep companionship, friendship, and then develops into love. I absolutely adored how Miller wrote this, her writing style, her plot, the story ideas, her imagination. I loved it, and I liked it better than Circe, although I did really like Circe. Number 11 is a memoir, and it is Deborah Levy's The Cost of Living, which I just recently read a month or so ago. This one took me by surprise because Deborah Levy is an author and she's a novelist. This is not a book about finances or how expensive it is to live these days. This is her mental and emotional cost of her life after her divorce with 2 daughters and having to move, living in London, being an independent author. There was some very poignant, powerful moments in here where she was talking about what she surrendered as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, and I say too often, but very often I could relate to exactly what she was feeling. Her writing is exquisite to me. I loved her writing. I loved everything she had to say in this book, and it was one of the best memoirs I read last year. Not better than this one, though. This one is these two are number 12 and 11. This one is number 10. I've talked about this book so often on my channel, you're gonna know right away, but it's Amateur by Thomas Page McBee. Thomas Page McBee is the first transgender man to fight a boxing match at Madison Square Garden. He's very clear and discusses his life before his transition as a woman and after his transition as a man in the body he should have been born in. He discusses boxing quite a bit, which is fine because it's actually pretty interesting. But the biggest line of narrative, and not narrative, it's nonfiction, but the biggest line in this book is his living as a man, the changes that in his life, the acceptance of his masculinity. He discusses toxic masculinity in this book in a way that I've never read before. He explores so many themes of fatherhood, his abandonment by his father, what that meant for him as a man, his treatment of his siblings, a sister and a brother, and how his treatment of them was different based on their genders, and what he came to realize after looking at all of that and after trying to analyze why was he acting that way, how he felt as a boxer, how he dealt with not telling his boxing coach of his transition until the night of his fight at Madison Square Garden. It's a fascinating book. It's very raw and so well written, and he's so transparent about the things in his life that he discusses and lives with. I loved the book. So let's see, number 9 is a poetry collection, Don't Call Us Dead by Danez Smith. This was exceptional. I was blown away by it. He discusses his homosexuality, his relationships, HIV status, being black, being a gay black man. It's very raw and transparent, very powerful, what he's saying about himself and what he's saying about relationships, love, all of it. I was blown away by it, and I thought it was, again, I've said this about short stories as well. I'm not that much of a poetry fan. A lot of it makes me feel stupid and I don't get it. But I've come to realize that I really have enjoyed contemporary poetry in free verse. And I really loved this collection. He recites a poem called Dear White America, and the video is on YouTube. I will link it below. It blew me away. To watch him, to hear him recite that poem, absolutely incredible. So the next one is number 8. It is The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell. I've also did an individual review of this book, which I read for maybe Midrash this year in May. This is a sci-fi book, not fantasy, but sci-fi. And it's talking about a Jesuit priest who leads a mission into outer space to basically evangelize to aliens, to find out where this random communication that they've received, they're in Puerto Rico at the Arecibo telescope, which has since been destroyed. I was so heartbroken when I read that story. But it talks about, it's so dense to explain. But he's working with a band of astronomers and scientists and academics, and they receive these communications from outer space, and they want to follow them up. And there's so many themes of faith, religion, science, evangelization, mission work. I think that's a very underlying theme that threads throughout the book is, what exactly do we feel about missions and missionaries? What do we feel about the contrast of religion and science? How do we feel about spreading somebody's faith throughout the world, and in this case, the universe? It's heartbreaking at the end. It is such a good character study throughout the novel. I was blown away by it. I absolutely love this novel. And I still haven't read the follow-up, but I've got it, and I will. All right, the next one is number 7. This is also a memoir, 84 Charing Crossroad by Helene Hanff. Oh, I love this book so much. This details the 20 to 25, 30-year correspondence between an American and the manager of a British antiquarian bookstore, and this is set in the 50s. Yeah, it starts in 1949. And Helene starts writing to an antiquarian bookstore in London because she can't find what she wants in New York City. And she's so crotchety and crusty that she doesn't want to walk too far from her own apartment to find what she's looking for. So instead of that, she starts this decades-long correspondence to get books shipped from this London bookstore at 84 Charing Crossroad. And it's so hilarious. It's not a novel. The memoir is epistolary, so it's letters going back and forth. And it's so sweet, charming, hilarious, and at times heartbreaking. But I absolutely loved it. If you are a book lover, this is a requirement. You must read this book. The next one is number 6. And this is a book I was tempted to do an individual review and analysis of, but I never did. And I've got all my notes. I've got 5 pages of notes on this book because there's so much to talk about. Believe it or not, and this is The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock by Imogene Hermes Gower. I loved this book. I read the text and I listened to the audio recited by Juliet Stevenson. The experience was sublime. I will never forget finding the audio by Juliet Stevenson. It's the story of a mermaid, but then it really isn't. It's set in Victorian England and Victorian London. A ship owner's captain sells a ship for $8,000 in order to buy a desiccated mermaid. And that's where the story begins. It's the story of love, relationships, business. It's fairly bawdy, and there are some naughty bits because there's a central story about a brothel and Mrs. Hancock. It talks about what you truly desire and how you reach that point in your life where you have what you want or what you've worked so hard for. It was such a beautiful book. I love the story. I love the characters. I love the style and the message at the end. It was so good. I highly recommend that. And I've given this as gifts a couple of times. This is one of those rare books that I've gotten the opportunity to give as a gift, and it's just been so much fun. All right, let's see. Number 5, one of my earliest books of the year. It is nonfiction, and it was one of the oldest books on my shelves, and it is Seabiscuit by Laura Hillenbrand. I absolutely love this book about horse racing, about thoroughbred horse racing. I have had this book, and I have had so many people tell me for years how good it is, and it's like, yeah, all right, I found it in, a bargain bin or something somewhere, or used at Goodwill, and I thought, hey, might as well. I think I bought it for $1, $2. I'll put it on my shelf and I'll read it sometime because everybody says how good it is. It's friggin' fantastic, and I can't believe I sat on this for this long. It is the exceptional story of the racehorse Seabiscuit, and it talks about horses as these gorgeous creatures, the people surrounding these thoroughbred racehorses, the business of racing, the lives of jockeys and owners and managers. This blew me away in it. And then just to hear the actual story of the author, Laura Hillenbrand, wrote much of this book from bed because she has a chronic illness, and there were times when she was doing interviews and talking on the phone from bed, and when she couldn't do any interviews, there were times when she was writing from bed. It was just spectacular, and this is not just for fans of racing in general. It is such a compelling story, and Seabiscuit, by the end of the book, he's just such a wonderful animal. Absolutely loved it. All right, what is next? Number 4. I don't know if this is going to be a surprise to anybody, but Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. Again, she's an author I will read anything of. I need to go and acquire some more of her books. It is the interconnected stories of Black women in London, Black non-binary people, transgender people in London, and it is just brilliant. I am pissed that it was not the lone winner of the Booker Prize for 2019. I am still pissed off about that. I'm not going to continue to talk about it. This is a book not using punctuation, not using capital letters when it should, not writing in complete sentences, talking about multiple character storylines, interconnected stories, characters that appear in the first couple of stories, and then all the way by the end of the book, everybody is connected in some way. It's brilliant, and I loved it. And if it wasn't for my next book, that would have been my book of the year, which is, this is not my book of the year, but this was in the running of the book of the year. I read Girl, Woman, Other first, and then I read Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. Again, this has been everywhere. I have showed this in many different tags. I have talked about this ad nauseum. I loved this novel. It broke the seal and I cried. It's just brilliantly written. The plot and the story is gorgeous. It is the story of the son of Shakespeare named Hamnet. It is a book about grief and family and love. Shakespeare is never named in this book because it's not about him. It's about his family and his wife, Agnes. It was so brilliantly written and talking about family, parenthood, marriage, and losing a child. It blew me away. This was a great buddy read experience with Gemma from Read a Book Gem, and I've got several other Maggie O'Farrell novels that I need to get to. So, here's the little twisty thing. There are 2 books that have been vying for #1 read of the year, and there's going to be no surprise. I almost considered pulling these out of the running because it just wasn't fair to the other books. It just wasn't fair. Middlemarch and Daniel Deronda. These are 2 of my several copies of each title that I own, both by George Eliot. I read Middlemarch first, for March of the Mammoths? Yeah, for March of the Mammoths. This was a buddy read with Alba from Seriella, as was Daniel Deronda, which we read as a buddy read in Victober. I changed my channel name because of Middlemarch. And I don't know how to describe how much I love George Eliot's novels. Sublime, I'm speechless. It was March of the Mammoths, because this book, not this particular copy, but this book was over 800 pages. I can't even describe the storyline because this book is so incredible to me. It's beloved. Again, I listened to this book and Daniel Deronda on audio, both recited by Juliet Stevenson, as I read the text. And Middlemarch starts off as a story of Dorothea Brooke. It breaks off into another main story of Dr. Lydgate, their relationship and dynamics between each other. They're both set in Victorian England. This is pastoral English life, the English countryside, aristocracy, wealthy versus poor, religion, marriage, inheritance. Middlemarch is the name of the town in the countryside of England that this book is about. Daniel Deronda is the main story in this, the main character in this one. This is a brilliant book talking about Judaism, but it's not all about that. There's a very strong storyline talking about Jews in England in the 1800s. Daniel Deronda is the main character along with Gwendolyn Harleth. The contrast between the two is just spectacular, and I don't even know how to... these books make me speechless. This was a book that almost, I still don't know which one is #1, which one is #2. Because this book, I was so sad when it ended. I was not ready to say goodbye to these characters. The ending was tear-inducing, and I don't even know. I can't say enough about her writing. George Eliot is not an author to start with if you're just starting off in classics. I would not recommend this. And I struggled at times as well, not just with the length, which I actually love very long books, but some of the material and her writing style. She can get kind of long-winded. She puts in a lot of description. A lot of the speech patterns of Victorian England can be very dense, but she's brilliant. She as an author is brilliant, and these are some of my favorite books of all time. What I have learned this year and the end of last year, I am a huge lover of the classics, and I can't say enough about my experience with George Eliot, and Alba and I are going to continue with it next year. Those are my best books of 2020. I hope you've read some of these and enjoyed them already. They were all 5-star reads for me. Again, George Eliot's books were so far beyond the 5-star rating that I almost considered pulling them out of the running, but maybe you would have been shocked to have not seen them on my list. So there they are. Let me know in the comments below if you've read these books and if you've loved them, or if you disagree with me, if you have differing opinions. I honestly love that too. So write me a comment. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a great end of 2020. We could all use it. And I will see you in the next video. Happy New Year, everybody. Bye.